The great Bobby Belt.
You ruined the morning show.
Don't make me take off my belt.
Don't make me take off my belt.
We're not.
Over to you, Bobby.
If football is a game played in the trenches, just how screwed might the Cowboys be? Let's talk about it. So the Cowboys made an addition yesterday. They signed Linval Joseph to a deal that's worth up to $4 million. Defensive tackle, veteran who's been around the league for a dozen years. And a guy who the Cowboys have been hesitant on in the past because of his limited scope, the things that he can do to really affect the game. He is a big space filler, a one technique defensive tackle who his entire job is to take on blockers and free up linebackers. He's not going to make a bunch of splash plays. He's not going to knife through the line of scrimmage and make a big play. That is not Linval Joseph's game.
35 years old, and the PFF ranking last year was not good at a 38.8. I don't think Mike Zimmer cares about that very much. 14th NFL season. Cowboys are his 7th team.
6'4", 330 pounds. This is a big boy.
Yeah.
And you had asked me last year before the season, like, how are we going to, what will progress look like for Mozzie Smith? And I had said at the time, progress for Mozzie Smith, you're probably not going to notice, because when you notice him, it'll probably be bad. And when you don't notice him, it's probably better. And you're going to notice, what you're going to see is, if you see the linebackers playing better than you expected, that's evidence that Mozzie Smith is doing his job. And that's going to be the same situation with Linval Joseph here. If the linebackers play better, if you see the linebackers getting free runs where they're able to just shoot through the line of scrimmage and make a play, that means Linval Joseph probably did his job and kept things under wraps. That's still a little bit of a concerning issue, though, that Linval Joseph, they felt the need to add him and Jordan Phillips and sign Al-Qadim Muhammad and Carl Loss. You've signed several defensive linemen in the last 2-3 weeks. That would seem to signal some level of panic about what you are in the trenches on the defensive side of the ball.
Yes.
And a little bit concerning. I do think Linval Joseph will be productive. He's not quite the player he once was, but his productivity is not going to be something you'll notice. But for $4 million, that at least sounds like he's your starting defensive tackle now at the one technique.
Here is my question, my fan text question for everyone at 877-881-1053, brought to you by Franklin Franco Injury Attorneys. Which ranking will be higher this year? The Dallas Cowboys rush offense or the Dallas Cowboys rush defense? Now, before you answer that, guess where they finished in yards per game rushing last year in the league.
Yards per game, not yards per attempt?
Yards per game.
They finished 12th.
14th. Where did they finish run defense allowed yards per game?
22nd.
17th. So, well done, Peyton. So 14 and 17. This year, will they have a higher rush ranking offense or run stopping defense?
I'm going to say that the run defense will be better.
I would too.
I do think that, I trust, if everybody's healthy, I think I trust the Cowboys offensive line to be better in the run game than I trust the Cowboys defensive line. But every other component of the run game, I trust the defense above the offense.
Okay.
So I'm going to trust the linebackers and the guys coming up playing the box for the safeties, that they're going to have a greater impact in stopping the run than the running backs are in generating yards. But I think that the offensive line is set up to, if everything is healthy, if you've got Terrence Steele back, recovered where he needs to be, Tyler Guyton is where he's at, then I think you've got a chance to block things up pretty well and have success in the run game. It's just, how much are you going to be able to get without any backs in that room that have any sort of juice? Now, it's not just a question of the defensive line. This is a trenches question and a concern about the trenches, because we jump over to the offensive line. Center is the quarterback of the offensive line. We still don't know who's going to be calling the offense. They haven't made up their mind on it. I think healthy competition is a good thing.
What do you mean they haven't made up their mind with calling the offense?
In terms of who's going to be helping to make checks at the line of scrimmage is the center.
Okay.
Like not calling the plays.
Yeah.
But when you look at that, the fact that center isn't settled, competition is good, competition is healthy. don't know that you want to be heading into the regular season still figuring out, okay, who are we starting at center?
Yeah.
That's one of the positions I wouldn't think you'd want to have instability at. So that's a question. Terrence Steele, though he's had a good camp, you mentioned earlier, Mike McCarthy said yesterday, one of the best camp that he's had since he's been here. Is Terrence Steele back to who he was in 2022, which was one of the probably 5 best run blocking right tackles in football, like an elite run blocker? Is he back, or is he still struggling like he did last year? Tyler Smith, I'm not worried about. Zach Martin, not worried about. The only concern I would have with Zach Martin is as he ages, it's not even decline. It's more he's been getting hurt more consistently. Maybe a little bit of a concern with that. But Tyler Guyton, what kind of a player is Tyler Guyton? And more specifically, right now the question would be, how healthy is Tyler Guyton? After news comes out yesterday that Tyler Guyton had to remove himself from practice due to knee soreness. And it's not the same sort of concern I would have when Brandon Cooks went out, which again was also not considered a big deal. But Brandon Cooks, it uses his lower body. It's his speed. That's where he wins. And Cooks is aging into his 30s, is going to be a guy who those issues don't tend to get better. So a knee soreness thing can crop up here, and that can tend to linger. Guyton, being as young as he is, I wouldn't think that would be as much of an issue. But still, if somebody feels the need to pull themselves out of practice with as little tackle depth as they have, that's a concerning spot for the Cowboys to be in.
We will ask Nick Harris. He was there at 9:20. He was there. Very disheartening text messages from Carter Freeman saying, look at the fan cam, look at the numbers. I thought this would plummet. Now that Brian Broaddus is not joining us from Cali every single morning, below the belt raised the fan cam viewer count by 50.
Boom.
So that's Bobby not failing today.
Because people thought Broaddus was on. That's why.
Yes.
I think we made it very clear in the segment yesterday that he wouldn't be, Peyton. I think we made that very clear. By the way, tomorrow, where we'll be out in Saxe, 5805 Bryan Street for the Firehouse Tour starting at 6 a.m. But this is something where I'm starting to, the lack of depth at tackle is starting to get really concerning for the Cowboys on the offensive side of the ball. You have Terrence Steele right now. I mean, Josh Ball is healthy, but what do you have in Ball?
No.
Waletzko's healthy. You're not confident in Waletzko at all.
Nope.
The pure tackles that they have on the roster that are healthy, it's Terrence Steele right now with the knee soreness on Tyler Guyton. And Tyler Guyton has missed a lot of time at this point.
House of Cards.
It is. And that's one of those things. Are you going to feel, is this team's success more tied, forget just the run game, is this team's success more tied to the defensive line being stable or the offensive line being stable?
Offensive line.
I think if the offensive line is bad, this is a significantly below 500 team.
Significantly
If they
below.
are bad.
We need to, or hurt, we need to talk about the reality of Dak Prescott having his worst rushing offense of his career. Because Broaddus always talks about the pass attempts. Like, how many pass attempts do you want Dak to have? Any great quarterback, you don't want him sitting there up in the 50s and 60s because law of averages, you're going to turn it over, you're going to throw picks. So I went and looked at this while I was on the yards per game stats of the last 5 years of the Cowboys rushing offense per game. 6 years. 14th last year, and then I'll just go backwards. 9, 17, 5, 10. So is this going to be, 17 is pretty bad, is this going to be the worst rushing offense that Dak Prescott has ever been given? I think many of us right now would lean towards yes. Even more pressure on him then. Even more pressure with the contract. Getting up to speed with CeeDee Lamb. Offensive line. Head coach. All the usual BS surrounding this football team and the circus. So that's something I haven't heard a lot of people talk about. What is this running back committee and O-line situation going to do to Dak Prescott?
Yeah, and it will likely have some
so
sort
I
of
need
an
Trey
impact.
Lance to just run around for the bad O-line, cover up their mistakes.
Get you, look, this is why gadget player there, Trey Lance, he can do a lot of different things for you. He's the Swiss Army knife. Let him be Taysom Hill. Don't be afraid to say he's Taysom Hill.
What'd you say, Peyton? Was that Peyton? Or? Oh, yeah, move on. That was Dak. Sorry. Not used to hearing Dak on the radio with us.
Over on the fan text really quickly before I start, I wanted to answer this because this is my bad. 817 asking what is one technique, and I know a lot of people don't know what that means when you hear that. One technique is a style of defensive tackle. So when you hear somebody say 3 technique, that means they are positioned on the outside shoulders of the guards. The one technique is on the outside shoulder of the center. So that's the nose tackle. That's the guy right over the ball. Basically the nose guard.
One technique, just think like the big fat guy is supposed to stand there and eat up space. And the 3 technique, Warren Sapp, get to the pass rusher, a more athletic, explosive fat guy.
3 techniques.
Is that fair?
3 techniques trying to get upfield. One technique is trying to eat space and create things for other people. To the point of how it could affect Dak, look, I think we've seen at this point, if CeeDee Lamb's here, if Brandon Cooks is who we think Brandon Cooks is, if Jalen Tolbert is taking a leap, I think that Dak dropping back and this being kind of an air-it out offense, I think they can have success with that, but it's not going to...
Game management. You got to manage the game. Yeah. He could put up even more stupid and silly numbers.
And that's
I don't think it is necessarily healthy for the football team with wins and losses.
Right. I think that...
All right, so last year, he had 590 pass attempts. Will he have more? And you got to factor in 590, I think, was limited by a lot of blowouts that they had.
Yeah, I'll say he has more.
2 years ago, he had 596. He said 590 or 596 3 times in his career.
So he had 2 years ago. That was the 21 season.
Yeah, basically the same identical stats.
So, but the other season where he would have thrown 596, that would have been in a year where he
played. That was
played,
2019.
2019. Okay, so that was years back. Okay, because I was looking at it as if he threw 596. Yeah, in 21 he threw 596. He didn't even play a full. Like he played one fewer game than he did last year. So he had more attempts in fewer games in 21. So I think it sets up to where he's going to have to throw the ball a lot. And the Cowboys, just at this point, they clearly are in a little bit of a state of panic with both sides of the trenches.
Good numbers, even without Brian Broaddus carrying you today in Below the Belt here with our Cowboys Insider.